Good morning, folks. Last night we posted one of the most important videos ever in the Earth catastrophe cycle. Yes, there is much more coming, but right now we've got more than enough to handle on the agenda, so let's go to spaceweathernews.com. We find the last day on our star finally more dominated by sunspot active regions than by coronal holes, which are now confined to the polar regions as the southern coronal hole departs to the right. The sunspots appeared in what seems like no time at all. We've looked at this one on the south, but also that northern grouping mentioned yesterday developed as well, bright crackling fields. As solar physicists are posting on the blogs, both are indeed spots from cycle 25 polarity, our forecast for 2020 being the cycle switch from 24 to 25 is now confident to the 99% range, and the fact that grand solar minimum has at least one more sunspot cycle to go, perhaps in cycle 26 or 27. Solar wind is calm as we await impact from that departing coronal hole stream on the south, and I do hope it arrives soon, because while it is not forecast to be major, it is forecast to nudge the KP index, and nudge I wish it would. Folks, that's 7 of the 8 KP0 blocks required for the #1 space weather health alert, a cosmic ray zero day. Presume the alert is at moderate levels now and is forecast to persist throughout the day. Eyes on it, and minds positive as the most statistically correlated cosmic energy event in the science journals still can't hold a candle to your placebo effect. Looking at the earthquakes up next, it was fascinating to watch the quakes in Central America shift to the southeast towards Panama, and doing so as the South American blood echoes ramped up in magnitude and then began migrating north. When both were over, their central meeting place took a 6-pointer in Colombia, but of course the big story of the day was in Cascadia. It's rocking again, this time up to magnitude 6.3, and we've got eyes open west coast as that's 3 6-pointers in 2 days. That typhoon has finally crossed the Philippines, did its worst on Christmas Eve for the island nation. We also have thoughts going out to Brazil where a landslide has turned deadly, one entire family gone in that one. Wanted to pull the official fall northern hemisphere snow data now. The numbers are in and it's another high mark. FYI, while it is true that the spring snow cover is the only one climate scientists like to discuss, and it is indeed decreasing, the snow totals in winter and in fall are on the rise, and sadly they just don't feel like talking about that part of it. Some quick notes here before heading out into space. From a geomagnetic perspective, the Carrington event flare in 1859 was not a unique event. This is sort of a follow-on paper to similar discussions out of the Japanese Astronomical Society regarding the secret of our sun, her almost never utilized 6th gear, but it exists. We'll get 2 blasts from the past today on the electroquake realm. These ones didn't make the morning news cut during our ultra-busy 3-movie release and preparation period earlier this year, but hey, we'll give them their due today, especially where the greatest China quake of the new millennium has now been shown to be an electroquake too. When you have the satellite that detects the pre-seismic anomalies globally today, it does help you see back into your past data interpretations as well. We'll take a brief moment here at IC 2051 from Hubble. Things accelerate science-wise from here, so let's take in the gorgeous galactic spiral and centralized ring. Okay, now we're off, and we're looking at a study that has play in cyclones, cosmic plasma, quantum liquids, etc., and it's all about the vortex. The little dots are vortices, and what really helps them is the destruction signatures. I have strongly dimmed the colors from their video because you could barely see what they were trying to show, but it's the bursts of color coming when a vortex hits either the center or the outside of the boundary and releases its energy around. This actual quantum-size experiment on a tiny silicon chip is able to show the music of the spheres, or, in this case, vortices. Folks, I had high hopes for this article upon clicking it, but it was actually just a bit about early and potentially ongoing galactic interactions with dwarf galaxies. But they did have one worthwhile graphic in the piece. It is always nice to get a picture of the galactic plane, intensity, polarity, proper motion. Bottom one actually shows you the galactic sectors. And we're off again to a baby stellar system that has mom and dad confused to pieces. The massive reservoir of gas around the center at this stage of its stellar development makes no sense and throws a major wrench into their timing and mechanisms of how the planets are supposed to form around these stars. Top 2 articles here, and first we're looking at the cosmic web, also known as the warm-hot intergalactic medium of filaments. Folks, This was actually announced as a discovery 18 months ago, and today we are getting confirmation to be published in the Astrophysical Journal. Folks, the missing matter is there in the medium. Now, this is critical because finding the missing matter in flowing filament currents is very, very different than finding it spread out, diffuse, and sparse, because currents have magnetic fields, electric fields, the electromagnetokinetic force on neutrals. Folks, this is that same topic from our plasma cosmology movie. We discussed it upon the initial finding, but now it's confirmed. There isn't much from that movie left that hasn't been confirmed, actually. And last but not least, they are taking a look at that infrared brightness superflare from the center of the galaxy earlier this year. Now, on one hand, indeed, they never saw the X-ray component, which we thought would be suggestive of the superwave, but they do describe the only physical means of production of that infrared outburst being the electromagnetic sheet reconnection due to plasma near the galactic core, or, in other words, how they describe a solar flare triggering on the sun. And this new paper is cutting against the lack of X-ray data and suggesting indeed that maybe from this distance from the galactic center, the superwave component does appear primarily in the near-infrared light. If so, the 99% speed of light relativistic particle burst would be only a few years to a couple of decades behind the actual photon signature we saw earlier this year, something to look for in the coming years, and perhaps that particle sheet already hit Proxima Centauri and Barnard's star. This is the subject of last night's video. We have done 40 videos on the Earth catastrophe cycle, but now, as of last night, for the first time, we have evidence that the galactic trigger is setting off the stars in a line from the galactic center right out to us, and we're next. Folks, we greatly appreciate your support. Watch that video and the background videos linked below it. We've got wind map forecasts and shots of our star to close, and of course, we'll do this all again tomorrow, right here, but right now it's 4:20 a.m. in the new Valley of the Sun. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.